मी लेफ्टनंट जनरल सुदर्शन हसबनीस यांना स्टेजवर आमंत्रित करू इच्छिते. लेफ्टनंट जनरल Sudarshan Hasabnis is BSc and BTech in Civil as well as MPhil in Military Studies. 58 courses, National Defense Academy at Khadakwasla, 68 courses, Indian Military Academy at Dehradun, and many prestigious courses. His postings were in all parts of the country, from Himalaya to deserts and jungles of the northeast India. He was the one of the part of Operation Vijay Kargil. In the 2002 and 2003 Operation Parakram, commanding officer of an engineer regiment deployed in the deserts of Rajasthan. Currently, he is the chair professor at Savitribai Phule, Pune University. So, here I called him to give his expression on growth and opportunities for Indian defense manufacturers. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. सर्वप्रथम BBNG ला माझा खूप खूप धन्यवाद. मला आज या कार्यक्रमात बोलवण्याबद्दल आणि माझे विचार मांडायला बोलवलं त्याच्याबद्दल. माझं मराठी तितकंसं काही चांगलं नाही. ऑल्दो ज्ञानप्रबोधिनीचा विद्यार्थी होतो शेवटची 3 वर्ष शाळेतली, तरी I'll have a mix of Marathi and English to convey my thoughts. मराठी उद्योजकांशी बोलायला मिळणारा चान्स हा मी स्वतःला खूप भाग्यवान समजतो. बिकॉज as was being spoken of by the previous speaker, Mr. Deshpande, आपल्या प्राईम मिनिस्टर्सनी एक खूप महत्त्वाचं वाक्य 21 फेब्रुवारीमध्ये पार्लमेंटमध्ये केलं होतं की प्रायव्हेट इंडस्ट्रीला आजपर्यंत आपण खूप वेडंवाकडं बोलत आलो आहे. वी बीन इन्सल्टिंग the private industry, and it's gone into our mindset. That needs to change because these are our wealth creators. तर आज मी आपल्या देशाच्या ब्राह्मण वेल्थ क्रिएटर्सशी बोलण्यात स्वतःला खूप भाग्यवान समजतो. सो थँक यू व्हेरी मच फॉर कॉलिंग मी हिअर. I was told to speak on the subject of business opportunities in defense. मला माहिती आहे आपल्यापैकी काही लोकांचा ऑलरेडी डिफेन्सशी संबंध आलेला असेल आणि त्यामुळे डिफेन्समध्ये घुसायचं कसं, काय त्याच्यातल्या हे असतात, त्या काही लोकांना नक्कीच माहिती असतील. माझ्या आधीच्या ज्या स्पीकर्सनी जे काही ज्या पद्धतीने बोलले, माझा जो सब्जेक्ट आहे तो बऱ्यापैकी वृक्ष असा जरी वाटला तरी मी जर हे कन्व्हे करू शकलो की किती मोठ्या ऑपॉर्च्युनिटीज आपल्याला या डिफेन्समध्ये आहेत, तर मी माझं काम व्यवस्थित केलं असं समजेन. तर मला बोलायला स्लाईडचं महत्त्व थोडंसं ऑडिओ व्हिज्युअल मला जे काही बोलायचं आहे ते जरा जास्त नीट कन्व्हे करू शकीन म्हणून स्लाईड्सची थोडीशी रचना जी केली आहे मी ती मला वाटलं असायला पाहिजे. बेसिकली मी माझा जो हा विषय मांडणार आहे तो 3 मुख्य भागात मांडायचा प्रयत्न करणार आहे. चलता है. So I will be focusing on the 3 primary issues. First would be the size of the business opportunities. Second are what are the avenues that are open. And finally, some hints about how to get in. But before I close, I would definitely like to speak about some challenges that would be coming up along the way. बंद कर. आपल्या पश्चिमेला पाकिस्तान आणि उत्तरेला चीन हे दोन्ही देश आपल्याला ॲडव्हर्सरीज आहेत. हे दोन्ही आपल्याला त्रास देतात. इनफॅक्ट पाकिस्तान आपला जन्म झाला तेव्हापासून आणि चीनसुद्धा खूप वर्ष आपल्याला त्रास देत आला आहे. आपल्या त्याच्याबरोबर खूप ॲग्रीमेंट्स झाली, पण गेल्या काही वर्षांमध्ये दे हॅव बिकम मच मोर ॲग्रेसिव्ह. अँड बिकॉज ऑफ दॅट आवर डिप्लॉयमेंट अलॉंग बोथ दी बॉर्डर्स हॅज बिकम व्हेरी इसेन्शियल. मेंटेनिंग सच अ डिप्लॉयमेंट फीट ऑन ग्राउंड, स्पेशली अलॉंग अ नॉर्दर्न बॉर्डर्स, जिथे ऑल्टिट्यूड्स 17 ते 20,000 फुटाच्या आपल्याला कल्पनाही करता येणार नाही, इतकी अवघड परिस्थिती अशा ठिकाणी आपल्या लोकांना 12 महिने राहायची जरूरत पडते आहे. अशा ठिकाणी असलेल्या लोकांचं मेंटेनन्स, त्यांच्याकरता लागणारी हत्यारं, त्यांच्याकरता लागणारे कपडे, बूट, या छोट्या छोट्या गोष्टी इतक्या अवघड आहेत, इतक्या महत्त्वाच्या आहेत की those themselves are huge opportunities. But maintaining such armed force, we all know की आपली जी आर्म्ड फोर्स आहे ती जगात 4थ्या क्रमांकाची मानली जाते. US, चायना च्या मागे आपला सगळ्यात जास्त खर्च आर्म्ड फोर्सेसवरती हा होत असतो. इनफॅक्ट ह्या वर्षीच्या बजेटमध्ये जवळजवळ 6 लाख कोटी इयरमार्क केलेले आहेत डिफेन्स करता. त्यातले जवळजवळ 90,000 कोटी हे जे रेव्हेन्यू बजेट म्हणतो आम्ही त्याला, त्याच्याकरता इयरमार्क केलेले आहे, ज्याच्यात फ्युअल, ॲम्युनिशन, स्पेअर्स, रिप्लेसमेंट ऑफ आयटम्स याच्याकरता आहेत. ही खूप मोठी जंप यावर्षी घेण्यात आली आहे. त्याला कारण आहे आपलं हे जे डिप्लॉयमेंट जे वाढलं आहे त्याच्यामुळे लागणारी ही जंप आहे. शिवाय एक खूप मोठा आकडा आपल्या कॅपिटल प्रोक्युअरमेंट, नवीन गोष्टी ज्या काही विकत घ्यायच्या असतात त्याच्याकरता आपण इयरमार्क केलेला असतो. आत्ता आपली परिस्थिती काय आहे? आपले जरी हे खूप चांगले दोस्त असले आणि ज्यांनी आपल्याला गेल्या 5 दशकात खूप मदत केली आहे, त्याच्यामुळे कंडिशन अशी झाली आहे, आपण याच्यापूर्वी नन ऑफ द प्रायव्हेट इंडस्ट्री वॉज अलाउड टू टेक पार्ट इन टू दी डिफेन्स इंडस्ट्री लाईक इन स्पेस. ओनली पब्लिक सेक्टर वॉज अलाउड in defense, and that meant that they had no incentive to do something good, something better, improve, innovate, or to do some research and development. In fact, DRDO has been at the receiving end of the CAG for many years for not being able to deliver on their promises that they make. त्याच्यामुळे काय झालं की आपला 70% हेल्ड इक्विपमेंट आजची जी आहे दॅट इज फॉरेन, त्यातली नियरली 90%, 86% टू बी करेक्ट, इज ऑफ रशियन ओरिजिन. आजच्या तारखेला जी रशियाची कंडिशन आहे युक्रेनच्या वॉरमुळे, दॅट दे हॅव कम टू अ स्टेट वेअर दे आर आस्किंग अस टू सप्लाय स्पेअर्स टू देम. So instead of our getting anything from them to maintain and to run our equipment, we are going to have to supply equipment and spares to them. This over-dependence on Russia is definitely a very major strategic constraint on us. And to an extent, this has resulted in a crisis for us. जसं आपल्याला न्यूक्लिअर फील्डमधनं पॅरिया डिक्लेअर केलं गेलं 78 नंतर, आणि त्याच्यामुळे आपला स्वावलंबनाकरचा जो भार होता तो खूप वाढवला आपण. आणि टुडे वी कॅन प्राऊडली से वी आर टोटली सेल्फ सफिशियंट इन न्यूक्लिअर टेक्नॉलॉजीज. दिस क्रायसिस of not getting foreign equipment, especially Russian equipment, which was always of a fairly good quality and much cheaper than what other countries were offering us, is now a major opportunity for us to indigenize. In fact, the targets that have been taken on by the current government are very challenging. By 2025, we have decided that defense manufacturing, Indian defense manufacturing, will reach a figure of 1.75 lakh crore a year. And out of that, 35,000 crores will be exports, defense exports, which till just a couple of years back was so low. In fact, my predecessor spoke about overall exports. We had practically no defense exports. Mind you, we are now multiplying the exports over the last few years. And the target of 35,000 crores is definitely stiff, but very, very possible. Towards this, the government has taken a large number of steps. One of them is identifying hundreds, thousands of items which are now banned from import. This is just a snapshot of the third list that has been put out by the government, where 780 platforms, not items, have been listed, which will not be imported anymore and now will be manufactured by Indian, whether public sector or private sector industries. So these reforms that have been brought in by the government, this should be music to the ears of private industry, and I'm sure a large chunk of what this 1,75,000 or even the 35,000 crores would come from private industry. Because I'm quite certain, having been in the defense and having been closely associated with the capital procurement and overall procurement matters of the military at the highest level, that our DPSUs are not going to be able to do this job as well as you all can take it on. So I would like to unhesitantly say that bulk of this expansion that is on the cards must and will come from the private sector. And I'm sure there's a lot for us to gain from it. In fact, the Republic Day parade this year showcased a large proportion of the major equipment which is being manufactured in India. Mind you, whether it is this Arjun tank or the missiles, Tejas aircraft or the aircraft carrier, we still have 70 to 80% non-indigenous content in these equipment. I'm sure in time we will be replacing all these foreign parts in these major platforms by indigenously developed equipment. Towards this, the military in its own way is doing a lot to reach out to the industry, because the most important problem that we noticed was that आम्हाला इंडस्ट्री किंवा R&D आपलं काय बनवू शकतं हे कळत नव्हतं, आणि इंडस्ट्री डझंट नो what the military requires. So all the three services have jointly and individually also been taking large number of actions to reach out to industry through various platforms that they have, whether it is in terms of seminars being held. Only recently one seminar was chaired by even the Prime Minister, where 75 AI challenges in space and in Navy were put out for industry to take. And even before the seminar was held, nearly 50% of those challenges were already lapped up by various industry houses and individual developers also. So there have been MOUs signed with a large number of academic institutions. We pride ourselves in hand-holding whenever we are co-developing with any industry, anything. The military is now reaching out to industry. There's been a huge change of mindset. In fact, about 7 years ago, I was holding an appointment in the Ministry of Defense, where I was being told 7-8 years ago that when it comes to private industry, ensure that you keep them at an arm's distance. Today, we are reaching out. It's a total 180-degree change in the attitude towards things. As far as the military is concerned, I'm aware that attitude is yet to fully percolate into our systems. In fact, just now we heard Mr. Deshpande talk about it. Ki government is government, will remain government. We'll come to it later on also. आपल्या उद्योजकांना फॉरवर्ड एरियाजमध्ये जाऊन तिथे काय प्रॉब्लेम्स आहेत, त्याच्याकरता काय सोल्युशन्स निघू शकतील, काय इक्विपमेंट वापरलं जातं आहे, त्याच्यात काय छोट्या छोट्या काय इम्प्रूव्हमेंट्स करता येतील, हे सगळं आता फॅसिलिटेट केलं जातं आहे. सो दॅट यू नो व्हॉट वी रिक्वायर, व्हॉट द मिलिटरी रिक्वायर्स, अँड यू कॅन ऑफर इट देअर इटसेल्फ की मी हे करू शकीन, मी ते करू शकीन. हे जे आहे, this is a major change that has taken place over the last few years, and I'm sure some of you have taken benefit from that and visited some of our establishments to understand what is the requirement of the military. So what are the avenues open? In terms of any procurement that the military does, I have already mentioned two words. One is capital and the other is revenue. Capital is when we procure anything that is new, that is first time being introduced into the military. Or maybe it's a huge, very costly item, like let's say a ship or even if it's a replacement aircraft, a repeat order of an aircraft, that would still be a capital procurement item. A tank. However, parts of these, when for spares, parts, sub-assemblies, these are procured out of revenue to keep something in maintenance, to run it, items, that's called revenue. So first I will go through the capital procurement related systems. We have something called as the defense acquisition procedure that has been spelt out. Anyone who wants to get into defense supply must acquire a copy. This is available on the net and read through this. Chapters 1, 2, 3 deal with procurement as buy items, wherein RFI, that is request for information, and RFP, request for proposals, are issued out by the military after thorough interaction with those interested vendors who are in a position to supply these items. The normal time for a capital procurement case to fructify from the time the RFI is issued is 2 to 5 years. We'll come to this later. But presently, I would like to suggest focus on the two first parts, that is issue of RFI and the RFPs, where you'll get to know what is it in capital procurement that the military is looking for. So we procure in various categories depending on the type of item, the ability of the vendors, etc. So buy items are those which are bought more or less off the shelf, which are ready for use. And then there are items which are co-developed, that are developed along the way, with ideas being shared and thoughts being shared. So buy can be, with the current focus, is going to be primarily from Indian sources. It's only in a case of emergency where a particular item is just not possible to be manufactured or even developed by an Indian source that we will be now going out to foreign sources for procurement. Even in that, now the government has made provisions that foreign manufacturers will need to come and establish their factories here in joint venture or in partnership with local industry to co-develop and co-produce items that are not being able to be manufactured by Indian industry. In the current latest procedure and policies that have been laid out, leasing, design and development, and upgrades have also been included in the policy paper so that these things can also be used for us to gain the capabilities that we need. In technology development, there are a number of avenues open for startups and especially startups and MSMEs to get into defense. They have been listed here. I'll be going through the first two a little more in detail. Make one are cases where a joint development, a development case of a larger platform, a system of systems is taken up, where government funds up to 70% of the development cost. Make 2 and 3 are, Make 2 specially, is to be funded by industry. These are normally smaller items, which industry themselves come up to say that, look, we have already developed, or we are in the process of now reaching a final stage of development of this particular item, and therefore it will be good for you to procure this. We see those and go ahead with the procurement along those lines. DRDO has a lot of projects where they are looking for development partners. They also give away TOT, transfer of technology, of technologies that they have developed so far, so that those items, if being required by the military, they can be manufactured under TOT, that's transfer of technology, DRDO technologies, and supplied to the military. In addition, the DRDO also runs what is called as the Technology Development Fund. I'll come to it in a minute. The Prime Minister inaugurated something called Innovation in Defense Excellence in 2018, in which startups primarily were being targeted to develop technologies with a support up to 1.5 crores being made available to these startups to develop niche, small but niche technologies. In a very short period of time, you can see 150 innovations have already reached contract stage. I mean, within a short span, when we are talking of government procurement, this actually is phenomenal. In this, primarily, startups and MSMEs can take part. However, even larger firms can take part in this program. Because of the success of both the IDEX and the Technology Development Fund, as I mentioned, being run by the DRDO, the budget this year has been doubled. The DRDO, to develop an ecosystem for promoting self-reliance, puts out challenges, and funding up to 15 crores is available for development of products along this line. A large number of products have already been developed, projects have been sanctioned, and large funds have been made available to those development agencies. As can be seen on this slide, nearly 80% of those that have been given these contracts are MSMEs and startups. The revenue and the Army Commander Special Financial Powers procurements, where regional commanders of the Army, Navy, Air Force are given powers to procure items which are relevant to their sectors, are an excellent opportunity for all of us. The turnaround time here is just at times 6 months, 3 to 6 months. From the time the idea is floated till the time the contract is placed. These are items maybe of a smaller denomination, maybe clothing, maybe drones, information, surveillance and reconnaissance equipment, GIS systems, communication devices. So such types of equipment are procured under these heads. In fact, in the year 2022, goods and services produced from MSMEs under these heads were to the tune of 15,000 crores plus. This is an increase of 25% over the previous year. And in the current year, current financial year, we have already crossed that target. Next, I come to the organizations, manufacturers' organizations that are existing in our, whether at national level or at regional level. We have something called as the Society for Indian Defence Manufacturers, which is a nodal agency at Delhi. We have our own MCCIA, Maharashtra Chambers, which has a defense section that they run. We have similar things. Now at Pune we have the Defense Equipment Manufacturers Association. These associations are excellent organizations which I would suggest most of us who are keen on becoming defense manufacturers must become members of. For the simple reason that they work closely as an organization body with the government and are a voice for the industry and shape policy. They create synergy between the defense forces on the one hand and the developers or suppliers on the other. They guide industries in identifying defense requirements and help in defense registration and other relevant issues. They create professional linkages between all the organs that are related to defense matters, whether it is the DRDO, it is the DPSUs, it is academia, private industry, and whether it is startups, MSMEs, whatever. So these associations are very important for us to know that they exist, and if we want to really become a defense supplier, becoming a member of these would go a long way in helping, in guiding you in this matter. They conduct training, they handhold and ensure that if there is any common linkage within the organizations, like I'm sure BBNG does here for our members here. On similar lines, if there are any, they resolve conflicts between industries and make sure that hand-holding and creation of joint ventures is facilitated. So, coming to the last part, how do I get in? Although the slide shows a closed door, but I would like to believe the door is actually wide open. Our inadequate knowledge restrains us from getting into it and creates hesitation in our mind. For entry into any procurement or development program, first and foremost, you need to be an Indian vendor. I'll come to the definition in a minute. Some eligibility criteria are as listed on this slide. First is the definition of the Indian vendor. Primarily, although this is a very busy slide, primarily it only means that you as an entity must be duly registered under the company law that exists and is updated from time to time, and must have a license if it requires to be obtained for a product that you have that you want to offer for sale. If you don't, now the list of products that have to be licensed has reduced immensely. So if there is no need of a license, then that much the better. If your company has any FDI, which now has been allowed up to 74%, without any clearances required, really, in defense manufacturing. To be an Indian vendor needs that the control and final ownership remains in Indian citizens' hands. So that's what the Indian vendor stands for. Then, based on various size of the contract or the value of the product that is being offered for procurement, Various other qualification requirements, whether it is credit rating, it is your average financial turnovers, your net worth, your insolvency status, and such like are required to be followed, and you must meet those criteria. In terms of ICT cases, there are certain special, that is information and computer technology cases. There is a minor change in these, but primarily you need to be an Indian owned entity. Only then can you be taking part in most of the procurement cases that the military runs. And like I said, license, there are specific requirements that have been spelt out in the DAP, as also there is this site that the government has, the MOD site, where all the requirements are very clearly and elaborately spelt out as to what are the qualification requirements that need to be met for you to be able to join a program. Insofar as make cases are concerned, again, you need to be Indian vendor, which all of us, I'm sure, are. And then there are, depending on the size of the contract, value of the product, there are technical and financial qualification requirements, QRs, that are spelt out, which need to be met. Whether it is Make 1, which like I said is 70% government funded, Make 2, which is industry funded, that means you only develop it and produce it for the trials by the military, or Make 3, which is actually, make is a misnomer here, it is manufacture of a foreign equipment in India. The biggest advantage for startups is practically no qualification requirements. Of course, a startup cannot be asking for developing a tank. It would be something that is limited by the cost of the item. But startups do not require anything else except the fact that they are Indian. So how do we finally actually get in? Like I said, the government publishes request for information, request for proposal, or EOI, that is expression of interest in taking part in a program. So these are put out in the public domain on a regular basis. In fact, these can be accessed, like I said, on the government site, which has been spelt out on this slide. Apart from these, if any of you feel that you have a product which would be of use to the military in any way, I think I jumped a slide where I spelt out that we need everything under the sun. There's nothing that we don't need. We are living human beings, everything that a human being requires, that is primary requirements. We do require aircraft, ships, tanks, this, that and all. But we require food, we require water, we require fuel, we require vehicles. All sorts of things are required by us. And therefore, there is scope for all of us to take part in this. In fact, in the cutting edge technologies of AI, drones, cyber, space, I would go to the extent of saying you may be the people who may be able to tell the military how they can exploit these technologies for their betterment, for their use, and then supply that sort of the technology that you suggest they can use. As I said, all these tenders are published on the MOD website, and this is a very good self-explanatory website that has been put out by the government. In all, you need to be on the lookout. You need to be sure what is your specialization and focus on that. Look out for queries from the government and the services on as relating to those specializations that you have. For an audience of your nature, I mean, the second bullet is really a waste, because there's no gain without risk. We heard a lot of the previous speakers talk about risk. The risk in this case is a little different. Not only is it a risk of success or failure, but the gestation period also is very long. You do not finish the product or the case in a short time. The procedure is lengthy, and on top of that is our good old bureaucracy. Nothing moves faster than the mind set of the bureaucracy. So what you definitely need, and as was highlighted by speaker after speaker since the morning, is staying power. There is a chance that the first order may be a large quantity, but it may not continue. And therefore, dual use type of technologies is something that you should be looking at. The ultimate test, of course, is your reliability and the quality of the product that you produce. And let me say this with a lot of emphasis, that the gain that you get in terms of national security is something that can't be measured. And mind you, the financial gain is not small. It will be very, very good when it comes to that. I have finished. Thank you. Jai Hind.
जय हिंद सर. मी डोंबिवली चॅप्टर सेक्रेटरी श्रेया कुलकर्णी यांना थँक्स गिविंगसाठी स्टेजवर आमंत्रित करते.
थँक्यू मिनल. नमस्कार, मी श्रेया कुलकर्णी, फाउंडर माइंडफुल मंत्रा. मी डोंबिवली चॅप्टरची सेक्रेटरी आहे. आपण काय करतो ना, एसीचं टेम्परेचर थोडंसं वाढलं की आपण उठतो, बाहेर जातो आणि चहा पिऊन येतो. यापेक्षा अत्यंत कमी टेम्परेचरमध्ये जे आपल्या देशाचे रक्षण करतायत अशा अनेक जवानांचं प्रतिनिधित्व करणाऱ्या आणि लष्करात राहून भारत मातेची सेवा करणाऱ्या हसबनीस सरांनी आपल्याला डिफेन्समधील व्यावसायिक संधी या विषयावरती सोप्या पद्धतीने मार्गदर्शन केले. आपण त्यांच्यासारखं अशा प्रतिकूल वातावरणात सीमेवरती राहून किंवा जाऊन रक्षण जरी करू शकत नसलो तरी आपल्या व्यवसायामार्फत आपल्या लष्कराला सबळ करून देशसेवेचं कर्तव्य कसे बजावू शकतो या मार्गदर्शनासाठी हसबनीस सर तुमचे मनापासून धन्यवाद. जय हिंद.